My aunt demanded I leave my husband so her daughter could have him, then I found out she was secretly sleeping with him and framed me to my own family. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband, Adam, who's 30, for 3 years now. Like any couple, we've had our fair share of ups and downs, but I always thought our relationship was solid. That's why what happened recently completely blindsided me, and now I can't stop questioning if I somehow caused all of this. So, I've got this aunt, let's call her Natalie. She's always been a bit much. Even as a kid, I remember how she'd do you a favor and then never let you forget it. She'd constantly remind people of the things she'd done for them, like they were forever in her debt. That's always been her thing, gaining control by pretending she's just being generous. Everyone in the family knows she's manipulative, but I honestly never expected to become one of her targets, definitely not like this. Back when I was around 18 or 19, I hit a rough patch. Money was tight, my parents weren't in the picture, and I just moved out on my own. I was juggling part-time jobs and barely scraping by. Things were tough, and Natalie stepped in and lent me some money. It wasn't a massive amount, but it was enough to get me through a couple of difficult months. At the time, I was incredibly grateful. I thanked her more times than I can count, and eventually, I paid her back in full. I honestly thought that was it, debt cleared, favor repaid. And for years, it really seemed like that chapter was closed. She never mentioned it again. Now fast forward to the present. Natalie has a daughter named Grace, she's 26 now. We were never close growing up. She's a few years younger than me, but we've always run in different circles. Truth be told, I've never really liked her, and I'm pretty sure she feels the same about me. Grace has always had this spoiled, entitled vibe. She gets whatever she wants, mostly because Natalie pushes her to the front of every situation. Family dinners? Grace is the main event. Holidays? Grace gets the best presents, the biggest compliments, just all of it. I've learned to ignore it over time because that's just how Natalie rolls. She treats Grace like royalty, and the rest of us are supposed to act honored just to be included. So, Grace's birthday is coming up, her 26th, and for the past few weeks, Natalie has been dropping little hints about how it needs to be extra special. She kept saying she wanted to give Grace the world this year. I didn't think much of it, honestly. Grace's birthday wasn't really something I had on my radar. I smiled and nodded when Natalie brought it up, just the usual polite stuff like, "Oh, that sounds lovely." Nothing more than that. Then, one evening out of nowhere, Natalie called me up and said she needed to talk about something important. I figured it had something to do with Grace's birthday or maybe some family get-together, so I agreed to meet with her. What she said to me during that conversation was so bizarre, it honestly felt like something out of a bad soap opera. She looked me dead in the eye and said the one thing Grace really wanted for her birthday was for me to leave my husband. I was stunned, completely speechless. I remember just sitting there thinking, wait, what? What did she just say? Natalie went on, totally serious, and explained that Grace had apparently been harboring a massive crush on Adam for years. News to me. I had no clue. According to Natalie, Grace genuinely believes Adam is her soulmate. She's apparently been longing for him since they first met, and now that she's turning 26, she feels like time is running out to claim the love of her life. I thought it was a joke at first. There was no way she could seriously expect me to break up my marriage for some twisted birthday wish. But the more she talked, the more I realized she meant every word. Then, just to make the whole thing even more insane, she brought up the money she lent me all those years ago. She told me I still owed her and that doing this for Grace would be the perfect way to repay that debt. I was absolutely floored. She said if I was truly thankful for her help back then, I'd step aside and let Grace be with Adam. I couldn't believe I was hearing this. I told her flat out that I wasn't going to destroy my marriage for some fantasy her daughter cooked up. I reminded her I'd paid her back in full, and whatever help she gave me in the past didn't give her the right to make insane demands like this. She didn't take that well. Natalie snapped. She called me selfish and ungrateful, accused me of ruining her daughter's happiness, and started ranting about all the supposed sacrifices she'd made for me over the years. According to her, I was heartless for not understanding Grace's feelings. I walked away from that meeting completely exhausted, but also confident I had done the right thing. I wasn't going to be manipulated into blowing up my life to make Natalie and her daughter feel better. I figured that was the end of it. But then, a few days later, things started to feel different with Adam. He grew distant, kind of cold. I asked him if something was wrong, and he brushed me off like it was nothing. I thought maybe it was stress from work or something minor until he sat me down and told me he was leaving me. He didn't give me a whole lot of explanation, just said things weren't working out and that it was time to go our separate ways. I was blindsided. Completely devastated. I had no clue what changed so quickly. Then I heard from a mutual friend who told me what really happened. After I said no to Natalie, she apparently went behind my back and told Adam everything, but twisted the story. She painted me as the villain. Said I was ungrateful, that I didn't care about family, that I'd been hiding things from him. She even made up lies about how I'd been emotionally distant and cold toward Adam, making it seem like I was the root of our problems. From what I've gathered, she convinced him I wasn't being honest, and that was enough to make him walk away. Now I'm left trying to piece my life back together. My marriage is over because of my manipulative aunt, and I keep wondering if maybe things between me and Adam were already shaky and this just pushed it over the edge. Maybe I missed the warning signs. Maybe I wasn't as good a wife as I thought I was. But at the same time, I'm furious. How could Natalie betray me like this? How could she go behind my back and wreck my marriage just because I wouldn't hand over my husband like some birthday prize? And honestly, what still messes with my head is how Adam just took Natalie's word at face value. I mean, shouldn't he have trusted me enough to at least have a conversation before making such a life-altering decision? The more I think about it, the more hurt and confused I feel. I'm completely lost right now, and I don't know how to handle any of this. My family's been split on the whole situation. Some think I should have just shrugged it off and moved on, while others agree that Natalie crossed a serious line. But deep down, I'm starting to believe this isn't just about Natalie anymore. I think there's something bigger going on, like maybe Adam had already been checking out of our marriage and this whole thing just gave him the perfect excuse to leave. I don't know if I'm overthinking it or if I've truly been blindsided. Part of me keeps wondering if I somehow caused all this. What if I had handled Natalie differently? What if I had paid more attention to Adam's emotional needs? Would things have turned out differently? But then again, I also feel like I was shoved into a corner. No matter how I responded, I think I would have lost either way. So now here I am, asking myself, am I wrong for refusing to cave to my aunt's insane birthday wish? Am I the one who triggered my husband walking out, just because she spun some lies? I just need to hear what others think, because right now, it all feels like it's spinning out of control, and I don't know which way is up anymore. Update 1. Hey everyone, so it's been a few weeks since my world basically fell apart. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened with Natalie and Adam, and honestly, it hasn't been easy. I wasn't planning to post an update, but I figured it might help me make sense of everything if I talk it out a little more. At first, I truly believed all of this was just Natalie meddling where she shouldn't have. But the more time passes, the more I wonder if there was already something broken between Adam and me, something I didn't see. I keep circling back to the same question: was this marriage already crumbling before Natalie ever got involved? When Adam told me he was leaving, he barely said anything. No real explanation, no emotional confrontation, just a cold, "It's not working anymore." That was it. There wasn't even a proper fight leading up to it. I was heartbroken and completely confused. I thought we were doing okay, or at least stable enough to get through bumps in the road. After a few days of letting it all sink in, I decided I needed answers. I texted Adam and asked if we could talk things through. I didn't expect a miracle, but I at least wanted closure. He didn't reply right away, and those next few days were excruciating. When he finally did get back to me, all he said was that he wasn't interested in talking. He'd made his decision, and that was that. But the worst part? He also told me he was already seeing someone new. And mind you, it hadn't even been a full month since he walked out the door. That crushed me. Completely. I couldn't help but wonder, was this someone he was already involved with before we split? Was I that blind to the signs? I didn't ask him any of those questions because, honestly, I wasn't ready to hear the answers. It felt like our entire history had been erased overnight. I've been dealing with so many emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. I keep asking myself how he was able to let go so fast. How was it so easy for him to toss aside everything we built? I can't help but wonder if he was just waiting for a way out all along, and Natalie handed it to him on a silver platter. My family is still torn. Some say I should have just played along to avoid drama, while others support me for standing my ground. But at this point, it doesn't even matter. Adam's gone. The damage is done. And now I'm stuck trying to rebuild from the rubble. I haven't spoken a word to Natalie or Grace since everything went down. They're out of my life completely, and I actually feel lighter without them around. But it still blows my mind that Natalie had the audacity to go behind my back and twist things to destroy my marriage. What kind of person does that? And you know what? I have this gut feeling that Adam might be seeing Grace. It would honestly explain a lot. Natalie was so desperate for me to leave him for Grace's sake. Maybe that's because something was already going on between them. I can't say for sure, but it wouldn't shock me at this point. As for Adam, I wish I could say I'm over him, but I'm not. I still love him. I probably always will, even after everything. But I've accepted that it's over. He's moved on. Now it's my turn to do the same. I know it's going to be a long, painful process, and there are days where I feel like I'll never get past the heartbreak. But I'm holding on to the hope that one day I will. Update 2. Hey again, first off, thank you so much to everyone who reached out with support, advice, and kind words. I really didn't expect that kind of response, and it meant the world to me during such a rough time. Before I dive into the next part of this whole mess, I want to touch on something a lot of people brought up. A bunch of you suspected that Adam might have been seeing Grace, and honestly, I started thinking the same thing. The way Natalie pushed so hard for me to give up Adam for Grace's birthday wish, it just didn't sit right. It felt way too personal, too urgent, for there not to be something deeper going on. I mean, what mother asks her niece to hand over her husband unless she knows her daughter and said husband already have something going on? It just didn't add up unless there was already a connection. Well, here's where things got even weirder and honestly, more disturbing. About 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Steven. That's Natalie's husband and Grace's father. We haven't spoken in ages, not since all this chaos began. But out of nowhere, he reached out and asked if we could meet. Said he had something important to tell me. And after everything I'd already been through, I figured, why not? I had no idea what he was about to reveal. At first, I was hesitant. The last thing I wanted was to get dragged into more family drama, especially not after everything that went down with Natalie and Grace. But there was something in Steven's voice that made me pause. He sounded serious, broken, even. So I agreed to meet. When we sat down, I could see right away that something was weighing heavy on him. Steven looked exhausted, like life had drained every ounce of energy he had. I had no clue what he was about to tell me, but I could tell it wasn't going to be easy. He started by apologizing. Said he was sorry for everything Natalie and Grace had done to me, for how it all turned out. I wasn't sure where he was going with it until he dropped a bombshell so unbelievable, I actually thought I'd misheard him at first. Adam wasn't with Grace. He was with Natalie. My aunt. My 50-year-old, conniving, manipulative Aunt Natalie. I just sat there, stunned. My brain couldn't catch up with what I was hearing. I thought for a moment that he had to be joking or that I'd misunderstood, but then Steven kept going, laying it all out in horrifying detail. He told me that one weekend, he came home early from a business trip, walked into his own bedroom and caught Adam and Natalie in bed together. In his bed. My husband and my aunt. I honestly thought nothing could surprise me anymore. I was wrong. Steven said he didn't know how long it had been going on, but based on the texts and messages he later found, it had been happening for at least a few months, maybe even longer. Natalie had been sleeping with Adam the entire time she was pretending to push Grace at him. That whole birthday wish nonsense? Just a cover. A convenient distraction to hide the truth from everyone. As Steven kept talking, I felt like the ground was collapsing under me. I thought I was bracing myself for the worst, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I knew Natalie was a manipulator, but never, ever did I think she'd do something like this. And Adam? The man I married? The man I trusted with everything? He'd been sneaking around with her? But wait, it got worse. Steven said Natalie had planned to leave him. Her big move was supposed to happen on Grace's birthday. You heard that right, she was going to destroy her own marriage, on her daughter's birthday, so she could run off with mine. And Grace had no idea. She was being used, too, just another pawn in whatever sick game Natalie was playing. She made everyone think Grace was in love with Adam, when it was Natalie who was in bed with him the whole time. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there listening while Steven told me everything. And then he handed me his phone and showed me some of the messages he'd found between Natalie and Adam. I couldn't look at them for long. It physically hurt. The way they talked about me, like I was just some obstacle they needed to clear. They had plans, real plans, for what they'd do once I was out of the picture. Reading those words made me sick to my stomach. I had spent weeks convinced that Adam might have had feelings for Grace only to learn it was Natalie all along. She had orchestrated the entire thing. She manipulated me, she lied to her own husband, and she betrayed me in the worst way possible. Now I don't even know what to do with myself. I thought I was just dealing with a husband who left me for another woman. But that woman being my aunt? That's something I still can't fully wrap my head around. I don't even know if they're still seeing each other, or if Steven's discovery blew their little fantasy apart. At this point, I don't think I even care. The damage has already been done. The betrayal is complete. And there's no coming back from this. I wish I had something positive to say here, like some silver lining or lesson learned. But right now, I'm just surviving. That's all I can manage. I'll keep you updated if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to breathe and get through the wreckage they left behind. Thank you to everyone who's been kind, it's honestly been a lifeline during this nightmare. Update 3. Hey again. It's been a while since I last shared anything, and a few things have happened since then. Hopefully, this will be the final chapter in what feels like the worst story of my life. I ended up confronting Adam. The outcome wasn't what I expected, but in a weird way, it gave me something like closure. Deep down, I knew I couldn't move on without facing him head on. I needed to hear it from him. No more second guessing, no more what ifs. So I reached out and told him we needed to talk. Somewhere neutral, somewhere where emotions wouldn't run too high. We ended up meeting at a park. I didn't want to do it at the house, where too many memories, good and bad, still lingered. When I finally saw him again, it felt strange. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He seemed worn down and hollow. But I didn't ask why. I didn't care anymore. I was there to say what I needed to say. I got straight to the point. I told him I knew everything. That I knew it was Natalie, not Grace, he'd been sneaking around with. That while I was home loving him, trusting him, he was in bed with my aunt. His face dropped. Not in a caught red-handed kind of way, more like he was deeply ashamed. He couldn't even look me in the eye. And to my surprise, he didn't try to deny it. No excuses. No lies. Just a quiet nod, confirming it was all true. Honestly, it was almost anticlimactic. I had imagined this moment so many times. Thought there'd be shouting, crying, some kind of emotional explosion. But instead, I stood there listening to him admit, almost like a child who knew he'd been caught, that he'd ruined everything. I had rehearsed this moment in my head for days. All the things I was going to say. But when the time came, all I could manage was one word: why? I needed to know what went so wrong between us. What about me, or us, made him throw it all away? He told me he hadn't been happy. That our marriage had become a routine. That he felt stuck. And Natalie, she made him feel alive again. When he said it, it felt like getting punched in the stomach. He stood there, telling me that he cheated because he was bored, as if that somehow justified tearing our entire life apart. I couldn't believe the audacity. I was disgusted, honestly. I told him right then and there that his selfishness had destroyed everything we'd built. There were 100 better ways he could have handled feeling stuck in the marriage. We could have tried therapy. We could have taken a break or just talked things out like adults. But no, he chose the path of betrayal. He chose to sneak around, lie, and blow up our marriage behind my back. That's when I told him, clear as day, I was filing for divorce. I didn't say it with anger. I said it calmly, firmly, and without a hint of hesitation. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I felt like I had control. I wasn't begging him to come back. I wasn't letting him off the hook. I wasn't playing the forgiving wife. I was done. And that's when everything took a strange turn. Adam, who had been so nonchalant about everything until that point, suddenly broke down. And I mean broke down. Not just a few guilty tears, he was sobbing. He grabbed my hands and begged me not to go through with the divorce. He said it was all a huge mistake. That everything with Natalie had fallen apart. That she wasn't who he thought she was. He told me the excitement faded fast, and once it did, her true self came out. Controlling. Manipulative. Always picking fights. He said she even threatened to expose their affair if he didn't do exactly what she wanted. According to him, she turned his life into a living hell, and now he saw just how badly he'd screwed up. It was surreal watching him like that. This man who used to act like nothing could shake him, crying like a child who broke something he couldn't fix. He said he felt completely lost without me. That he couldn't believe he'd thrown away everything we had for someone like her. He told me he still loved me, and that he'd do whatever it took to fix things. But honestly, I felt nothing. No pity. No sympathy. No desire to go back. Natalie had burned that bridge for me, and Adam had helped her light the match. The trust was shattered. There was nothing left to salvage. I looked him straight in the eye and told him it was too late. There was no fixing this. No erasing what he did. No rebuilding something that had been so completely destroyed. That's when I think it finally hit him. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't going to forgive him, and there was no comeback story waiting for us. He kept trying, though. Still pleading, still promising to change. Telling me he'd do anything to make it right. But I had already made peace with my decision. I told him I deserved better than this, that I was moving forward, and there was no us anymore. Part of me had braced for him to get angry. To lash out or throw blame like he did during old arguments. But that didn't happen. Instead, he just crumbled further, realizing that he'd lost me for good. I walked away. Didn't look back. I've already filed for divorce, and honestly, it feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. That's not to say it's been easy. Some days, the pain still hits like a freight train. The betrayal, the heartbreak, it still stings. But deep down, I know I made the right call. As for Natalie? From what I've heard, she's livid. furious with Adam for trying to crawl back to me. Apparently, their so-called fairy tale blew up pretty quickly after everything came to light. Now they're both miserable. And while I'd never wish chaos on anyone, their drama isn't my concern anymore. They made their choices. Let them live with the consequences. I've cut Natalie out of my life completely. There's no forgiveness left in me for her, no room for reconciliation, no second chances. She's gone, and she's staying gone. I refuse to let people like that hold space in my life. This has been the hardest experience I've ever had to face. But it's also taught me a lot about my own strength. I've learned that I don't need someone who lies to me, cheats on me, or disrespects me. I deserve a partner who values me, who shows up for the relationship, not someone who throws it away the second they feel bored. So that's where I am now, starting over, one step at a time. It's going to take a while to fully heal, but I finally feel like I'm on the right path. To everyone who offered support, encouragement, or even just a kind word, thank you. You helped me more than you know. I'm closing this chapter. The drama is over. It's time to live my life on my own terms.